If you sell by referral, relationship building, and network marketing, pick a time and let's talk about podcasting. You might be surprised. When done correctly, all you have to do is have the conversations. Simply dial 239-351-5575 and ask for Tom. That's 239-351-5575. Or go to lawfirmpodcasts.com to schedule a call.
Welcome back to New Jersey Criminal Podcast. In this series, we will be doing a deep dive into the July 2015 death of Tiffany Valiante, originally ruled a suicide. Joining us is Paul D'Amato, attorney for the family, Tiffany's parents. I'll just note at the beginning of this episode and all of the episodes in this series, some of the things that you may hear will be disturbing or could be disturbing to our listeners, and so I would just suggest that listener discretion is advised. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for being here in my law office today.
I appreciate you taking the time to share Tiffany's story with me. And I'm going to just ask you to jump right in and tell us about the day that Tiffany died, July 12th of 2015. What happened that day?
Welcome to the NJ Criminal Podcast.
Well, I would say within 2 weeks after her passing, Diane and Steve Valiante, Tiffany's parents, came to my law office and were adamant that their daughter Tiffany had not died by suicide. And I said to them, let me get certain files, the investigation done by the New Jersey Transit Police Department. Let's see if the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office was involved, and let's get the file from the state medical examiner. So we sent letters out, and I remember the Saturday after they were here, I had asked them to bring friends and relatives that were with Tiffany on the day and night in question and were close to Tiffany. So there must have been 22 people that showed up at 9 o'clock. And I started at 9 o'clock and spent 15 minutes with each person. And that's how I learned what happened that particular day and night. And everybody was consistent. And when I interviewed these individuals, I was alone with them. And here's a synthesis of what everybody told me. That Tiffany was happy. She was in a fantastic mood because she was excited about going to college, a college that gave her a scholarship for playing volleyball, that she was excited about life. She told some of the relatives that if college doesn't work out for me, then I want to join the Air Force because they have a volleyball team. And she said that eventually she would like to go into law enforcement like her Uncle Mickey, who was a New Jersey state trooper. What was important to me was that one of her cousins, I call him Cousin Bob Valiante, who was on the Unsolved Mysteries piece, when I brought him into my conference room to ask him about Tiffany, he very abruptly put his hand up and said, you don't have to ask me any questions whatsoever. I'm going to tell you that my niece was murdered. And candidly, I was taken back. And I said, well, what's the basis of your opinion? He said, I've been in corrections 22, 23 years. I'm trained to recognize depression in prisoners. I was with Tiffany up to about a half hour before she went missing. And there was no depression there whatsoever. One of the issues that I explored with the family was whether the fact that Tiffany had come out as being a young gay woman was an issue of controversy in the family, and especially with the parents. And they all indicated that they all sensed that she was gay, but that she had not admitted, and that when she admitted to everybody, they said, no big deal, we accept it. I think any parent initially has some concern. Is this something that is a fleeting moment in your life, or is this a commitment to a certain lifestyle? And the overall, the relatives that were close to Steve and Diane said that within a short period of time, everybody had accepted it and said, this is the way it's going to be, then this is the way it's going to be. So in talking with them, and especially Tiffany's sisters, Rachel and Jessica, I learned that everything was going rather smoothly. And Rachel and Jessica were extremely, extremely close to Tiffany. And they were absolutely adamant that she wasn't suffering from depression, and that she wasn't drunk that night. She hadn't smoked marijuana that night. And that leads us up to when a certain girlfriend of Tiffany's came to the home.
So let me just stop you real quick. I just want to clarify one thing. You referred to Bob and you said cousin Bob. Was that cousin or uncle?
Their Uncle Bob's son is cousin Bob.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were referring to the right person. So on that day, it's my understanding that there was a graduation party across the street from Tiffany's home, at the home of her uncle. And it was a graduation party for her cousin, who had also graduated from high school that summer, that month before. Not the same high school as Tiffany. And from what I have heard, it was a fairly large party that was attended by quite a few people. Was Tiffany there all day at that party, or what time did that party start?
It started in the afternoon, and she was there, I would say, at least by mid-afternoon, and continued to be present at this party.
Right, and I think it's important, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, but the toxicology that was performed revealed that there was no evidence of alcohol or any type of illegal substance. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. There came a point in time later in the evening, a little bit after, I think, 8 or 9, where a friend had come over to confront Tiffany along with the friend's mom. Can you describe what happened there and what happened as a result of that interaction?
I can say what certain people that were in attendance at that meeting have said. The friend accused Tiffany of stealing her credit card and using that credit card to buy various items. There is a dispute about how much it was. He says it was in excess of $300, and other people say it was less than $100. But nevertheless, this friend was very upset at Tiffany. Now, what Diane said is that there was no shouting coming from Tiffany, no argument. Rather, Tiffany was staring at her, wondering why she was even bringing this up. Now,
but the friend does say that Tiffany was angry.
She
correct?
says that.
Right. Okay. I just want to be clear on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she says that, but I'm telling you the other side of the story. Now, here's what I learned as a result of investigation that was done by a retired police officer about this credit card issue. And I can't say factually that this was the case, but other people have confirmed that if you and I are friends and you say to me, Paul, can I borrow the credit card that your parents gave you? You take the credit card, you go out, you buy a couple items, you give me the credit card back. My parents, when they see the monthly statement, say, did you buy those things? I say, Mom, Dad, I didn't buy them. I don't know what that's all about. And apparently, this retired police officer confirmed that this was a very common event with this group of young people. Now, again, I emphasize, do I know for a fact that that happened? But some people say when trying to explain Tiffany staring at this young lady, it was more of like, you know the gig that's going on here. What is this all about? So,
nevertheless, there was a disagreement. The friend and her mother left, and it's my general understanding that Tiffany's mom spoke with her again about it. Tiffany observed Tiffany in her vehicle actually put the card in her back pocket, which is when Tiffany's mom knew that, she had in fact had it and used it. And that's when Tiffany's mom went in the house to get Tiffany's father. I am curious, while I'm thinking of it, was that credit card ever located?
No, it was eventually given back to the friend's mother.
Okay. By who? By Tiffany's mother?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I think so. But let's, I want to emphasize that Diane was upset with Tiffany. Having raised 3 daughters myself, when a child does something that's unnecessary because Tiffany had her own card, you get angry. It's a natural reaction to get angry. But as has been adamantly stated by Steve and Diane, yes, they were upset with her, but not to a point that it was such a horrendous event that Tiffany would decide to die by suicide by running into a train.
Right. Tiffany leaves the property when Diane, her mom, goes inside to get her father. And there is a photograph that is captured. I would imagine it's the last photograph that we have of Tiffany that's captured on the family's deer cam, which is located just at the end of the driveway. And the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, the time of her leaving the property is about 9:30. Is that accurate?
9:25, 9:26, around that time. Yeah.
Okay. And I've looked at that picture and we can see what she is wearing. Her phone does appear to still be in her hand in that picture, although the phone is recovered not too far away from that location, discarded or dropped or thrown or placed along this property line. But Tiffany does appear to be looking towards her left as she's walking away. And I think she's wearing short sleeves. Is that accurate description? Okay.
Yes.
So what happens between 9:25, 9:30 on July 12th, 2015, and the time when the family reports her missing to the police which I believe was about 12:23 a.m.
Yeah. That's the big question. There are photographs that were taken by the deer camera that were not shown unsolved, where you see headlights at the end of both driveways. What I mean by both driveways, there's a U-shaped driveway. There were two deer cameras. And if you look at all of the photographs, you can see the headlights of several cars at the end of the driveways.
So in other words, just to clarify, the Valiante property has a U-shaped driveway with basically two ways to enter and two ways to exit.
Correct.
The party that was going on was across the street and to the left slightly. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And at the point in time that Tiffany leaves the property, which again is about 9:30, was the party across the street still in full force?
Yes, and that's a very important point. I know we're going to get into this, but arrangements were made for a bloodhound that was owned by the Atlantic County Sheriff's Office to track any scent from the point that you see Tiffany in the driveway as shown in the deer camera. And that bloodhound had her walking down the street in front of her home, making a right and going at least a mile to Tilton Road, traversing Tilton Road, then walking toward the White Horse Pike, stopping, coming back now, walking towards Wrangleboro Road, and there's a shortcut you can take, and then walking on Wrangleboro Road to Genoa, I believe it is, and then coming to the railroad tracks and walking about a mile. The bloodhound never followed the scent to the point of impact between Tiffany's body and the train. Now, this is the problem. There had been almost 3 inches of rain, and it was heavy downpours, and we have the records to confirm the amount of precipitation. And I spoke to 2 active handlers of dogs that were in law enforcement and said, with that much rain, that is not a reliable tracking by a dog, even a bloodhound.
Well, let's talk about that right now while we're talking about it, or while you're talking about it. Ultimately, we know that Tiffany was hit by the train at about 11:10. And again, that was on July 12th. On July 17th, which would be 3.5 to 4 days later, the Atlantic County Sheriff's Department did in fact bring out a bloodhound. And you had mentioned to me before that your investigation had revealed that there had been at least one, if not more than one, rainstorm between the time of the incident and the time that the bloodhound went out.
It was definitely 2 rainstorms.
Okay,
definitely. Yeah.
Now, I reviewed the report by the Atlantic County Sheriff's Office, who handled the bloodhound, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when he came to the house of Tiffany's, her parents' house, on July 17th in the morning, he met with her uncle, who, as you've said, was a New Jersey State Police trooper, who lived across the street and whose house the party had been out. And he provided a scent article that he had gathered and placed into a clear plastic bag, a dirty pair of shorts. And he had told the sheriff's officer that he had gathered that without contamination, and that she was the only one that had used or touched that particular article of clothing. And so, and we can just kind of walk through the map here. It appears that the bloodhound basically went down her driveway, went up the driveway about 10 feet, turned and pulled hard back down the driveway to the street, making a right. That's Mannheim Avenue, correct? And then took Mannheim to Dressera, and then made a right down Dressera towards Tilton Road, and ultimately went down Tilton Road, trailed back and forth to the intersection, but then cast up and down the northbound wood line, picking up a scent and pulling down a concrete path leading to Wrangleboro Road. Now, you and I went out there last week, and there is a concrete path that connects Dressera to presumably the back of Wrangleboro Road. The report indicates there's a retention pond there, and there was a very strong scent pool in that particular area. And started to cross over the airport fence line, but then pulled hard down the wood line along Wrangleboro towards South Genoa, going to Genoa and Allo, and then trailing from Allo towards the railroad tracks, where the bloodhound took a sharp turn heading down the tracks westbound. And as you indicated, took those tracks about a mile to a switch in the tracks, and then continued to pull past the switch about 25 yards, but then went back east and stopped. Ultimately, and I'll just note that the report seems to indicate that the officer who conducted this particular trail with his bloodhound was unaware of where the incident occurred. And the report seems to suggest that the bloodhound stopped about 2,000 feet from the impact site, although there is an indication that after impact, the train did in fact travel for about that distance, about a half mile. And so the report seems to suggest that the bloodhound came to a stop, which at the point where the train would have come to a stop. Is that an accurate depiction of what the bloodhound revealed?
You accurately stated what the report says.
What the report says,
what
right.
The report says,
I'm
yes.
curious, has anyone measured that distance? If we presume that that is the path that was taken, how far is that path? Do we know?
What
Because
path?
the path that the bloodhound took. So the question that I would have is if you presume that Tiffany did in fact travel along the path that the bloodhound suggests that she did, how far of a distance is that?
I measured it with my odometer at about 4.5 miles. Some people have said it's 5 miles. Some people say it's 4 miles. Mm-hmm. It's somewhere in there. But when I did it with my odometer, I had about 4.5 miles.
Okay. Because my question would be if we know the time that Tiffany left the house, again, 9:25, 9:30, and we know that the time of impact was about 11:10, that's about an hour and 40 minutes. Is that a doable distance for her to have walked? And we'll get into in a couple more minutes about, the fact that her shoes were found in a totally different location. So I want to put that on the shelf for a minute. But do we believe that had she walked that distance could have been traveled in that time frame.
Yes.
Okay. And so, and I know, we can talk about bloodhounds. Have you done any research on the reliability of bloodhounds? Because some people say they are very reliable, that holds up in a court of law, but then the question becomes whether or not the rain would have interfered.
Well, as a former prosecutor, haven't you been involved in the discussions of the reliability of polygraphs? Some people swear by them, and yet when I did criminal defense work, I had 2 separate clients that, quotes, passed the polygraph, but subsequently admitted, being responsible for the particular crime. It's the same thing with bloodhounds. If you go on the internet, there are many, many articles criticizing the reliability of the hounds. As I said, I spoke to 2 active persons in law enforcement that were handling dogs. And what I've learned is that when you use a dog to do tracking, it has to be very structured as to how you're doing it, what the weather is like, and so forth and so on. So there's serious questions about it. But see, here's the problem. And this has always affected my analysis of the case. My interviews of so many people, friends of Tiffany's grandmother, who's passed, such a lovely woman, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the coach of volleyball at Stockton University. Everybody said she had a tremendous fear of darkness. Now, and I accept that. I accept that. You can't have that many people knowing that and then turn around and say, oh, it didn't exist. In fact, there's an actual psychiatric diagnosis in the DSM called nyctophobia, fear of the dark. Now, here's the problem. Why is that important? If you or anyone goes out there at night and you leave the Valiente property, Mannheim, and then you come to Drosseria, there is no artificial illumination whatsoever on Drosseria. It is pitch black. And as you know, because you've read the reports, there was no moonlight whatsoever that night. In fact, when I have been in my car and I'm on Drosseria driving to Tilton Road, I stop my vehicle, I turn the headlights on, you can only go a couple feet.
Right.
Because you have no idea where you're going.
And I'll just note for the listeners that at the one of the last episodes in this series will be clips from Paul driving me various ways to the point of impact, because there are different ways to get to the point of impact, and I think that's important to note. I wanted to go over what the bloodhound revealed, but when you took me to the point of impact, I think there's at least 3 different ways that
That's
you
right.
can get there. So, and the reason that that's important to note is because, and we'll get into this in a couple of minutes, but Tiffany's shoes and her headbands, which she was not wearing when she was killed, were not found in the path of the bloodhound.
That's right. That's right. And if I may, if any of your listeners go to where the railroad tracks intersect with Genoa Avenue, which runs from Wranglebury Road to the White Horse Pike, if you stop at those tracks, exit your vehicle at night, and you look down, it would be, I would say, northwest on the tracks. It is absolutely pitch black. You can't see anything. And the question would be, if one takes a position that she did walk. Why would she walk all the way down there? If it was her intent to take her own life, why does she have to walk down that area?
Right.
I don't think it's logical.
And I'll note that I read one of the depositions of one of her friends who indicated that she didn't know that she was afraid of the dark. Be that as it may, it was dark, and the question becomes, we know that she didn't have her cell phone with her, and so there would be really no way for her even to see where she was going. Is that correct?
Good point. And she was a typical teenager, but she was so possessive of her phone that she bought a special covering for her cell phone so that when she was taking a shower, she could talk to her friends in the shower. She would never be without that cell phone. And so your audience understands that if you go to the end of the Valiante driveway and you make a right on Mannheim, I would say about 15, 20 feet, Steve Valiante found the phone on their property, about 5-6 feet off the roadway.
And that phone was seized and ultimately searched by the Atlanta County Prosecutor's Office, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. Just returning to our timeline for a moment, the point of impact is about 11:10 p.m. She's reported missing around 12:23 a.m., and then her uncle arrives on the scene of the accident not until about 1:30, and then is able to let the officers there know that his niece had just been reported missing. There seemed to me to be a disconnect between departments, right? Because at the point in time that the parents report her missing to Hamilton, she's already been killed.
Yeah, exactly.
And presumably that agency, there was. It just surprised me that there was. It's not that far, that there wouldn't have been that knowledge that this accident had occurred. But be that as it may, another hour goes by. Uncle's out still searching for her at 1:30 in the morning or so, and introduces himself to the officers who are on the scene, which I think was in the area of Genoa and Aloe, and he identifies Tiffany. And so there is a medical examiner that comes out, and ultimately, we can talk about I'll put in air quotes, the autopsy that was done. It was not a complete autopsy.
No.
So, and because I think it's really important to go through this timeline, because there are some items that are not found for several weeks.
This podcast is not a source of legal advice. No two legal cases are the same. Contact an attorney if you require legal assistance. The best way to follow, subscribe, rate, or message the show is to visit njcriminalpodcast.com. Podcasting is a powerful sales tool with digital marketing benefits. If you're interested in law firm podcasting, simply dial 239-351-5575 and ask for Tom. That's 239-351-5575. Or go to lawfirmpodcasts.com to schedule a call.